Observing behavior looks like a simple technique, but in fact, it's proven not to be difficult because we do it every day. These observations will analyze person-environment interactions within a setting and to unobtrusively observe human actions, interactions, and bodily gestures. The site lies within the heart of Brisbane City Business District. The restaurant Corbett and Claude borders between the city and Eagle Street Pier. The chosen area within the restaurant is detailed in the pink square. It features a mixture of tables where groups and individuals can connect and mingle. The setting was visited a total of 4 times during the week and observations were taken at the busiest times. Times visited were between 11:30 a.m. and 12 p.m. as well as around 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. Observation A happened Wednesday lunchtime and was chosen because of the relations that would come about due to groups of business people coming together. Observation B was Thursday midday and was chosen to allow for the observation of interactions that would occur between family and seated customers. Observation C happened during Friday night shopping. This time was chosen to observe possible interactions and behaviours between couples, families, and business visitors. Observation D was on a Saturday and was chosen to observe the interactions that would occur when the restaurant was a little bit busier. Over the course of the 4 observations, a main sign of wear and tear was seen to have developed on the flooring of the setting. The floors are made of a polished concrete with a logo printed on the top, but over time it was observed to have been worn away by foot traffic. Using Ziesel's framework, the most notable missing trace was to do with official and unofficial signage. Within the chosen setting are props that are permanent to the venue and aren't considered foreign materials. Using Ziesel's framework, there was an instance when a new group of people came into the setting and during their stay, new members of occupants came to join their table. These elements, meaning the new occupants, became visual separators, but not all were considered physical separators. Through observation, these barriers are just elements within the environment that are detached from what's happening in the restaurant, and in theory, they hold no purpose. Within the site, it was observed using Ziesel's theory and framework that there was a lack of public messaging within the setting. The type of signs not within the setting were access signage as well as bathroom and wayfinding cues. Upon observation, there was only one note of a bathroom sign, but no other notes within the site about setting access. Some of the official signs that were quite prevalent were the setting menus, a quote, and branding logo. Using Brunswick's theory focusing on probabilistic functionalism, it became clear that the most visually powerful cues were represented in some of the interior features. The most relevant distal cues were flooring, furnishings, colours, and lighting. In analysing these, the types of proximal cues that represent these elements best are represented as traditional colours and textures, cold surfaces, cosy themes and furnishings, dark lighting and corners, as well as textures and tones. Some occupants used elements in an appropriate way, while there were some instances where they used elements at their table differently to improve their experience. These surfaces and elements afforded seating, leaning, and standing opportunities. Applying theory, a solid horizontal surface seen in observation 3 is said to offer or afford support and rest. Meanwhile, most vertical surfaces, such as a wall, should afford movement like walking. One of the key properties to the occupant's experience were the laneway windows, as they made the receiver pay attention to the internal and external setting. Similarly, novelty elements within the setting are pieces such as styled furniture and interior decor, but unfamiliar elements are the menu items and restaurant functionality. These elements create a sense of complexity and novelty, where the setting doesn't display too much of a simple layout and presentation. Using the PAD emotional state model, the restaurant's emotional setting alluded to a very lively and rich space. Outfitted with plush seats and lounge chairs, the internal spaces and fixtures present a mixture between high arousal and pleasure. Overall, the exterior of the venue perceives this feeling as an unpleasant experience because of its dark appearance, where the only light affordance is from the inside of the venue. It doesn't afford the feeling of intensity, but rather feelings of novelty. Using Gifford and Lynch's theory revealed that the space overall lacked clarity around legibility and wayfinding. Some of the ways the seating facilitated spatial cognition was the use of a large branding sign on one of the walls out in the laneway. Meanwhile, on the interior, there is only one space in the venue where a small plaque visualizes where the bathrooms are. While there are signs of the logo in and around the area, there isn't any designated sign directing a patron into the site. The use of indoor plants, natural materials, cool and calm colours suggests the perceived environment is one that's meant to produce a sensible and cosy experience. This echoes a legacy that represents a cohesive and natural-based identity. While this is effective at creating a warm environment, the setting represents a very moody theme. Since the space is located within the heart of the city, there aren't many opportunities for patrons to connect with nature. The setting has tried to apply some natural elements into the space to compensate for the lack of available green space. The use of natural shapes has been used for furniture pieces. Some of these are square, while others are rounded and more organic shaped. In observations, the lighting was observed to be different in person than it was in pictures. During the day, the lighting was inviting and visually pleasurable, while at night, during the dinnertime rush, the space resembled a disconnected space where the restaurant acted as multiple separate entities. Within the setting, the space is pre-planned and set up with ergonomic elements that need to be there. Thermal comfort and air quality is regulated from within the setting, although the only fresh air that enters the setting is from the front entry point. Meanwhile, during observations, it was noticed that a couple of patrons asked the waiter to turn down the music because it was too loud to conversate over. Detailed in an observation, each patron at their table exhibited gestures that implied familiarity with the setting. While they are separated by personal space, they are engaged and interested with each other and the setting. While they are leaning in and engaged with each other, they aren't sitting directly next to each other physically. They are social distancing. It was interesting during the observations to see where individuals will sit in relation to their given table. Some people chose to sit at the bar, for it is the highest vantage point in the whole restaurant, and these occupants were considered as extroverts, for they wanted to experience the setting in full flight. Another photo is an instance where an individual moves to look behind him to inspect others at their table. This individual was presumed also as an extrovert, for he wanted to be a part of the environment, but not physically. Observing the setting in terms of personal space, the tables are quite spread apart to allow for people to sit in close contact with each other, but further away from others. Meanwhile, the tables closer to the bar are within way of the main thoroughfare and are quite exposed. Smaller round tables are for couples only and are quite exposed within the space, while the long function tables take up quite a lot of area and can be considered as an uncomfortable space. Within the setting, what was mostly noticed was the use of subtle branding and the use of natural and warm colorings. Using natural and hard materials, the interior visual reflected an industrial aesthetic, something that resembled a pub. Overall, the space resembled an interior that can be a place for refuge. It was also observed that there was not a lot of opportunity for patrons to personalize these types of spaces because they had already been pre-organized. What was observed was that many people created territorial boundaries, either using their own personal property or by using their bodies. In a few of these observations, it was pointed out that each patron had used one or more of their personal possessions or their own body parts as a way of identifying that the space was theirs. People's protection over their own space via the use of their own belongings or personal being was observed that they either didn't feel safe or weren't connected to the setting enough to feel relaxed. The paired emotional state model by Gifford has been applied to the space by the use of large operable windows that have been implemented along the side of the lane, as well as green walls integrated down the main entry stairs. In response to Ziesel's framework, the adoption of new official signs have been placed throughout the site to make it more clear for the occupant. To address Cassidy's privacy theory, green walls have been introduced throughout the venue to separate some of the major parts to the restaurant. Using Clement Clune's psychological theory, another addition has been made to use sliding windows, which in application would create access to natural ventilation, lighting, and acoustics. Furthermore, major changes have been made to the overall access and performance of the venue. They have been added to the exterior and interior of the setting. In relation to Clement Clune's ergonomic theory, a ramp was integrated in one of the private rooms of the setting. This was to enhance the amount of accessibility into the venue. In response to the spatial cognition theory by Lynch and Gifford, signs, visibility elements, and paths have been used to create more visibility and extra wayfinding.